we see King Kong running through the hollow earth from a horde of saber-toothed predators, the wart dogs. However, the abyss that opens before him forces the giant to turn towards his pursuers and take up the fight. After his victory, he has to take a shower under a waterfall to wash off the remains of his enemy. Later, Kong feasts in a cave but is distracted by a broken tooth. The cheeky lizard takes advantage of the moment and steals Kong's food. For a moment, Kong hears the rasping roar of someone else, as if a beast like himself were roaring. Kong rushes to the sound, but it's not his kin, a parrot frog that manages to make a loud growling noise. Unaware that he is the last of his species, Kong's daily search for his kin goes nowhere. At this time, Godzilla lives on Earth. The main thing is to make sure that none of the giants invade each other's territory. Humans are lucky that Godzilla fights where humanity is powerless, and as a proof of this, we see Godzilla fighting the giant crab, Scylla, and defeating the monster. Not only the monster, but also a lot of pasta restaurants in Rome. Mamma mia! After that, he calmly goes to bed in the Colosseum. The Titans are monitored by the Monarch organization, including Dr. Eileen Andrews, head of Kong research. Her colleagues constantly monitor the behavior of the monsters, as well as the condition of the hollow earth. Here and now, they observe another anomaly in the hollow earth. A new canyon has opened up where Kong usually hunts. Helicopters take to the skies to investigate. Next, we are shown Andrew's daughter, who falls asleep in class and manages to draw strange signs on the desk while asleep. She is mute, so she explains herself through gestures. When Eileen is called into the principal's office, she has to explain to the teacher that the girl is the last member of the Iwi tribe, so she is having a hard time adjusting to the new world. Meanwhile, it's night in the hollow earth. The monitors at the Monarch organization's control center show interference again. All the employees are asleep and don't see the monster approaching the cameras. In the morning, Eileen visits Bernie, an old friend. She shows him her daughter's drawing and explains that the triangular objects on it are exactly the same as the pattern of interference from the hollow earth the day before. Their conversation is interrupted by a message on Andrew's cell phone. She hurries Bernie to come with her. Godzilla has awakened. Something must have disturbed him. It soon becomes clear what has happened. Kong finds a way out of his underground world into the upper world, violating the sanctity of Godzilla's territory. Kong doesn't want to do anything wrong. It's the toothache that brings him up. Monarch's staff manages to give the giant a massive dose of tranquilizers, and when he falls asleep, they pull out his painful tooth. Trapper is a unique vet who puts a false tooth on Kong. Meanwhile, Bernie deciphers the signal in the picture. This is an SOS signal. Someone in the hollow earth calls for help. A team led by Eileen goes into the hollow earth to check it out. The first destination is the post, with which communication was lost. Daughter and Bernie go with the Andrews. Veterinarian Trapper also flies in. Kong is awake and sees no reason to stay on the upper world. He walks over to the portal and jumps in, and a moment later, Andrews' ship flies there as well. By this time, Godzilla has reached the coast of France. After visiting a nuclear facility, he absorbs nuclear energy and prepares for something unknown. Eileen's group approaches the first post. There are only ruins in its place, no survivors to be found, but a camera has been found that may contain valuable footage, and a giant paw print not belonging to Kong has been found on the rock. Kong returns to his home in the cave but sees a new canyon. He grabs his axe and jumps into the abyss. Looking around, he notices the skulls of what may be his kin. After passing through a waterfall, Kong enters new terrain where he encounters the young of his species, Suko. Overjoyed, the giant reaches out for the kid, but he bites his finger and scurries away. Only when he is determined to catch up with the baby does Kong see the adults. Obviously, it is a trap. A moment later, he is knocked down and pinned to the ground by several gorillas. Kong gets the upper hand. He even does not hesitate to take little Suko and use him to beat up the enemies. He sends the last gorilla into the abyss, shouting, "This is Sparta!" When it's done, he lets the feisty little kid show him the way. As the ship flies, Eileen checks the camera. She sees the eye of a giant primate looking directly into the lens. It's clearly a giant primate, but it's not Kong. At this point, the ship is hit by the same interference. Gia notices where the signal is coming from, and the team decides to land and investigate. Walking at the head of the group, Trapper suggests taking a detour because he senses someone's presence, but the ship's pilot is too angry and toxic to listen to reasonable arguments. He sees no alien presence on his instruments and wants to continue. Pilot doesn't have time to finish his sentence as the tree behind him attacks and eats him. The group runs away, and deep in the jungle, they find the ruins of an ancient city. Eileen identifies it as the architecture of the Iwi tribe. It turns out that the hollow earth is also inhabited by humans. For a minute, we are shown a radiation-charged Godzilla. He's on his way to the Arctic. After tracing his path, the Monarch's men conclude that he wants to meet another extremely aggressive titan, Tiamat. It becomes clear that by defeating him, Godzilla will become a superpowered monster who will do do anything to gain more power for himself. Back to the group, we see them find a passage to a world where the SOS signal came from, and after entering the passage, they decide to explore the area. Meanwhile, Suko takes Kong to the shore of a beautiful lake, and as Kong drinks, standing knee-deep in the water, the little scoundrel sees something dangerous approaching from behind underwater. Moments later, Kong is attacked by a giant snake. A fight ensues, during which Suko tries to hide in the jungle. Suko is knocked down by Kong's axe coming from the shore, followed by the severed head of a snake. He is afraid that Kong will punish him, but he does nothing. On the contrary, he allows the hungry kid to eat sushi. Monarch continues to follow Godzilla. They watch as the monster finds the Northern Titan and engages him in battle. A giant snake wraps itself around its opponent, but the accumulated radiation allows Godzilla to spit out a nuclear beam that cuts the snake into pieces like a laser. Godzilla then hides in the lair of the defeated Tiamat, freezing there and beginning to absorb the surrounding energy. Then we return to Eileen's team. In the middle of the jungle, they are surrounded by members of a tribe. They take the captives to their place. Team sees a huge crystal that serves as the power source for everything around them. This is the Iwi, a tribe that survives in the Hollow Earth. Members of Iwi tribe can communicate telepathically. Their queen calls Gia to her and, by touching her palms, sees all of her past life. Realizing that her little tribeswoman is standing in front of her, the queen gives a signal for the rest of the team to be released. The queen leads everyone closer to the power source, and Eileen realizes that they are the ones who sent the SOS signal. A tribe living in a monster world is so scared of someone that they ask for help. Next, the queen leads everyone into a cave where the walls are covered in writing. Eileen manages to translate it. The hollow and the outer world once lived in harmony. Titans protected nature, and giant primates protected humanity. Until one day, a giant primate sought power in the outer world. He and his monkeys attacked Godzilla, but he emerged victorious and imprisoned the villain in the fiery world of the Hollow Earth, where he lives to this day. As Eileen narrates, we see the baby ape leading Kong deeper and deeper into the fiery land, with lava flows and hot gazers everywhere. Approaching a small valley, Kong sees a quarry where hundreds of exhausted primates are working. They are watched by wardens who punish the offenders severely. After knocking out one of the guards, Kong helps one of the primates, much to the ruler's displeasure. At the edge of the valley, a giant orangutan, Scar King, emerges from his throne. Everyone bows their heads at the sight of him. Orangutan walks over to the standing Kong and examines him. The ruler is displeased with the little boy who dared to bring an outsider. Suko has the parents back, but the orangutan needs to show the stranger his power. He pushes the defender into a lake of lava, where he is instantly incinerated. Kong is furious, and a fight breaks out between him and the orangutan. The cruel ruler is armed with a sharp-tipped bone whip, and Kong is armed with his axe. As Kong begins to gain the upper hand, the ruler brings out a prisoner who freezes everything around him, the Titan Shimo. Scar King has power over the monster. Using the tip of his whip, he hurts the Titan and commands it to attack the outsider. A new fight begins. Suko shows Kong the entrance to a cave, where he can hide from the monster's icy breath and climb up into the hollow earth. At the last moment, Kong manages to jump into the cave. The Titan is chained so he can't pursue the enemy, and an army of primates rushes into the cave. Eileen keeps reading about all this on the walls. She realizes that this is what the Iwi are afraid of. They know that Godzilla is coming to fight Scar King, but he won't fight alone. One of the outsiders will return and awaken Godzilla's longtime ally and Iwi's protector, the Titan Mothra, and that savior will be Gia. Meanwhile, Kong is being chased through the hollow earth by enraged primates. But this is Kong's world. Even though he is wounded, he manages to lead his pursuers into traps. When there are 5 of them left, Kong stops at a dead end. All hope lies in the final trap. If the enemies stumble over a liana, a powerful rockfall will hit them on the head. However, the pursuers notice the stretched liana and carefully step over it. Kong has no choice but to face them, but at the last moment, the stones pile up. That was the little guy's job. Suko activated the trap. Seeing that the danger is no longer imminent, Kong falls to the ground. Shimo managed to freeze his arm, and now that arm is non-functional. Kong and the kid continue to wander, coming upon the Iwi tribe and Eileen's group. No one sees one of the survivors of the rockfall stalker sneaking up behind them. He sees the tribe's territory and the vortex in the rock that leads to the upper world. Upon reaching the tribe, Kong loses his last ounce of strength and falls to the ground. While Trapper examines his frostbitten hand, the Scar King's primate returns to his master and tells him all he has seen. The orangutan mounts his captive Titan and leads his army into the lands of the Iwi. Trapper sees sees that Kong's arm is badly damaged. The nerve has been hit and the tissue is dying. Eileen realizes that the ape cannot survive in this world with only one arm. Trapper mentions Project Giant when a mechanical arm was created to augment Kong's power. The man remembers it being stored at the first checkpoint. He flies there, brings back a prototype, and places it on Kong's injured arm. Injections cure frostbite, and mechanical enhancers give the primate extra strength. Kid runs in and warns them that an orangutan is approaching. Kong is in a hurry to get to the upper world. He wants to get Godzilla's attention. But since he is trespassing, the Titan can easily attack Kong. However, if Kong traps the giant in a hollow earth, Godzilla will roll over to the Scar King, preventing him from getting to the upper world. Meanwhile, Gia goes to awaken Mothra, and Kong comes out in the upper world near the Egyptian pyramids. A little later, he is attacked by Godzilla. Kong fails to immediately hide back in the vortex and lures the Titan there as well, so he gets really pummeled by the giant monster. At the last moment, as Godzilla is about to unleash a death ray, he is knocked down by the approaching Mothra. Finally, all three giants unite and fall through the hollow earth, exactly where Scar King and his Titan are headed. An epic battle begins. Eileen's group only has time to board the ship and escape. At some point, there is a gravity surge and the ship's engines fail. However, Mothra saves them from falling. Titan carefully catches the falling ship and puts it on the ground. After a gravity surge, everything starts to get sucked into the vortex. All the Titans fall into it, and Kong accidentally loses his axe. Once inside the vortex, the monsters are transported to the upper world. Rio de Janeiro finds itself at the epicenter of a devastating battle. Scar King begins to gain the upper hand on Kong with his bone whip. He also uses the tip of his whip to send his Titan, Shimo, at Kong. In the moments when Godzilla isn't fighting this Titan, the latter is intent on attacking Kong. The primate can't take on two giants. Meanwhile, in the hollow earth, Suko sees Kong's axe, stuck in a rock near the vortex. He leaps to it and pulls the weapon out of the rock, falling into the upper world with it. The monster battle continues. Scar King swings his whip at Godzilla, but Godzilla catches it and bites the tip off. Orangutan realizes that without it, he will lose his power over the Ice Titan, so he tries desperately to pick it up. Kong tries to get ahead of him. The apes fight again. At the last moment, little Suko swings his axe and brings it down on the crystal, shattering it into thousands of shards. The Ice Titan is freed from the will of others. Kong grabs the Scar King's neck with his metal arm and lifts him above his head. Imitating Sub-Zero, Shimo freezes the Scar King, turning him into a block of ice. Kong slams him to the ground with all his might, shattering his opponent like a glass statue. Fatality, Kong wins. While Iwi celebrates the victory, Eileen approaches her daughter and tells her that she will support her wherever she decides to stay. Woman is sure that Gia will stay with her own people, but the girl chooses her mother. Eileen is very happy. Meanwhile, Godzilla returns to Rome and goes to sleep again in the Colosseum. He curls up and falls asleep like in a nest. As for Kong, he, the Ice Titan, and the kid go back to the hollow earth in the quarry. The exhausted primates, seeing the trio, realize that Scar King's oppression is over, which means only freedom lies ahead.